Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night, wherever you're joining us from. Today, we're going to be exploring such an important topic. I'd say maybe one of the biggest ones that brings people into Tantra in the first place, which is our sexual inhibitions. How do we deal with shyness, guilt, shame, all those kind of thoughts that come up in your head when you're ready to be intimate with someone that just block the whole thing? How do we deal with those, and how do we transform them, and how can we awaken more confidence? We're going to be talking mostly about female sexual confidence here, but I invited men to this meeting as well. So hello to the guys who are here. Thank you for joining. It's good for you also to understand a lot about female sexuality, assuming you like to relate with women. But also, of course, you'll find something for yourself, as we all have inner masculine and inner feminine. Before we begin, we'd love to hear just a little bit from you. If you can open up your chat and just tell us where you are in the world so that we can get a quick read of who's here. So if you can find your chat, and here we go. Amsterdam, Germany, north of London, New Zealand. Wow, so then maybe that's the middle of the night or tomorrow morning or something. London and Latvia, another Amsterdam. I'm going to put myself in there. Germany, Bali.
Ali, me too.
Fantastic. Sweden, nice. Great. Amsterdam, Bavaria. So a lot of Dutch and Germany. That's nice to see. We're well represented. So my wonderful guest here today is originally from the Netherlands, although you probably wouldn't be able to tell other than her name. Welcome to Arja Hendrikx. Thanks for
Thank
joining us all the way from Bali.
Yes. Yeah, I'm born in the Netherlands, but haven't lived in the Netherlands for 10 years. And often people know that I'm Dutch and they write me in Dutch, and it's just like, oh, I don't even speak it on a daily basis anymore. I need to make such a switch because my whole work is in English. But yeah, obviously as soon as it comes, it comes back. But yeah.
I won't be trying my Dutch on you, don't worry.
You can probably only say the love languages and the naughty talks. So
Exactly. I speak the very, very much the love language. But today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics. And so I'm so glad that you're choosing to share this with women as well. Which is, and I think for women like us, like you and I, we put ourselves out there, these tantrikas and our wonderful lovers and amazing love affairs and our tantric orgasms and all of this. But, what many people don't realize is that at some point we totally struggled with sexuality. I mean, I was celibate at about like 19. I'd given up on sex way back then. I just didn't enjoy it at all. And so that's maybe a side that people don't see so much. And I think it's so helpful to talk about that and talk about, well, how do you make that journey, that transition? So maybe you want to share your story a little bit, like were you always sexy, or did you ever struggle?
definitely not. And I think a lot of people when they meet me nowadays or when they're in my workshops or my space, it's like, but you're so confident. And then when I share, like, I really haven't always been this way. Like I've dealt with so many insecurities, first of all when it comes to body and body shame, but also like insecurities in the bedroom that really for me resulted in overperforming. Like I remember that before I learned everything about Tantra, I wanted to be this woman that was like never boring in the bedroom. So actually the way that I showed up was really inauthentic, was not connected to my body at all. It came from an insecurity. I put this mask on and I was performing and I was like, I'm gonna make this sex as amazing as possible, but actually just to mask my insecurities. And it brought me so much in my head that sex was more a mental turn on rather than like a deeply embodied experience.
Mhm.
But before, like, if I go back if somebody would have told me about Tantra like 8 years ago and would be like, oh, and your lovemaking can be so much better and more amazing, I was like, my lovemaking is pretty good. Until I was in a workshop, which was a striptease workshop, where actually like we had to strip naked, which was something that was so difficult for me, and where actually I realized how insecure I felt being seen and how much I was holding myself back, and I only made love in the dark, and like I was so ashamed of being loud or it feeling awkward, or even initiating, which right now is what I'm all about. Yeah, I wasn't realizing how much I was holding myself back. Like I thought that having pain after sex was normal. I always had burning sensations. Sometimes I would even bleed after lovemaking, and I thought that's part of it. I just thought, after like 5-7 minutes, it just goes sore, and then it's over, and that's it. Yeah. So for sure, I'm not someone that enjoyed hours of lovemaking. I just made a reel about this today. It's like when somebody first told me that tantric lovemaking can last for 3 hours, I was like, ah! I was like, that sounds horrible to me. Like after 10-20 minutes, I'm done. And now like the connection that I created with my body has shifted everything when I got the education that I received now. So 100%, never been like this before. Everything that I know is an art that I learned myself. And this is also why it proves that if I can learn it, everyone can learn it.
I think what you described is so normal. I mean, when you look around imagery and what's promoted as sexy, it is just so fake. And I think most of us don't realize that until you start cracking your own veneer, like faked faces and faked lips and faked filters on Instagram, and then faked orgasms and faked breasts and faked sounds and faked, it's all faked. And of course, pornography is all faked. And so, in our innocence, that's what we learn. We learn how to pretend to be having fun and how to pretend to be sexy. And most people don't even realize that it's not. Just like you shared, I think most people don't even realize there's a discrepancy until they start doing deeper work. And then, and you really hit the nail on the head that then when you start unveiling, you realize, oh, wow, this pseudo confidence is over the top of a massive amount of fear and lack of confidence. Yeah. And that's a revelation that's almost like the beginning of the journey of like, oh, wow, I have been doing sexy and not being sexy.
No, and not feeling it. No. And actually, this is, for those of you that are here now or that are going to watch the replay, I actually invite you to take that as an exercise. And to really go inside of yourself and feel like, am I really feeling connected with my body? Like in what ways maybe are insecurities in the bedroom that I'm not being authentic about, or that I'm not being real about? Like that's like one of the first steps to overcome this like shyness or insecurities or inhibitions, is to really go inside of ourselves and do these exercises and feel, reflect, where am I not being honest? And, I knew for a long while, okay, faking an orgasm, I did that when I was 16, 17. But, when I'm 21, 22, later on, I knew that wasn't done, but I faked how much I was enjoying. I faked how much I liked it. I faked even in the end. I was like, oh, I really want you to come. Not because I enjoyed the man coming so much, but just I was like, I'm done. I'm ready for it to be over. So I'm just going to fake how much I want your come. And I was just like, my yoni hurts, I want to stop. But I wasn't honest to say that actually it hurts, can we stop? I was just like, okay, let me just act that I have the most amazing sex so it makes him come, and I wouldn't talk about what was actually happening. So I really invite you to, sometimes the insecurities or the fears might not be as obvious. For me, all of them were hidden. I really thought like I'm a sexual woman, I'm confident. And only when I went deeper, I started to discover how much I was masking my own insecurities. So that's an exercise that I invite you to really sit with yourself, like how real, how authentic am I in that? And where am I hiding? Where am I not fully owning even either my desires or the things, that I like? Where am I saying yes when actually I mean a no? A great example for women and for the men, I think this is really, really good to hear that are here, is, how often are you really, really ready for penetration? Because when I look back, most of the times that went too soon.
Mm-hmm.
It was too quick, and it wasn't even asked, like, hey, are you ready for penetration? It just, I don't know, it just kind of happened. Like, if there was a condom in the play, then at least was there like, oh, he's packing a condom, so I have some time to maybe say that I'm not ready yet. But then it's, oh, but the condom is already there, and what if it gets awkward and he gets soft and creating all this weirdness in the bedroom? But often it's like I wasn't actually ready to be penetrated yet. Mm-hmm. So even for women to check in with yourself and be like, how often do you really wait to be ready? And for the man, is this even in your awareness that the woman might not be ready because, her muscles inside of her yoni need to fully open for it to be pleasurable. Like the whole nerve endings need to be activated for her to really have pleasure. And a man has pleasure really quickly, but for a woman, it takes so much longer. So yeah, both men and women, I invite you, next time you have sex, really feel this moment of penetration is so special. Like, take a moment for that and really check in. Am I ready? Am I ready for this?
So there's a great quote somewhere from a Taoist text, and it's something like, when and only when the woman is arching her back, her hair is all standing on end, she has goosebumps, she's making sounds of ecstatic pleasure, her throat is open, her fluids are flowing, her nipples are dark, and only then are you ready to penetrate her? And
I love that. I love that.
It's such a great quote. I remember reading it and thinking, wow, I didn't even know that it was possible. And I think that's an important thing for women, is also to find out for themselves when they're ready to be penetrated. Because most women, I think we have sex, we're so young and we don't know about boundaries and we don't know about our own pleasure. So we allow penetration, and it's only when you have a great lover who really waits that you discover, oh my God, it can feel that good. I can actually feel pleasure on penetration, and so it's worth for everybody to slow down and try and find that place, instead of everybody just getting by on mediocre sex, which I think is happening to a large extent.
And I think what you're saying there, and actually I'd love for those of you that are live now, like, feel free to chat. Sometimes I move my eyes to check if you see that there is some comments. Like, if something hits you, or it's like, actually, yes, feel free to let us know. I always love seeing the engagement. So feel free, like, I'm checking sometimes for the chat box to say if like something hits your heart, let us know. Because I remember that one of my friends, she always had these orgasms from penetration. And I just thought, that's not possible for me. There was no pleasure in penetration. I just felt nothing. And I just thought, that is the way it is. It's just, I just can't do that. Like, I had clitoral orgasms that would take a really long time. So I always felt like I'm taking too long, and that would bring me more pressure and would lead me even further away from orgasming. But like, knowing that you can, there's tools and techniques that you can sensitize your yoni, and penetration can become pleasurable. And now I have so many orgasms from penetration, like I lose count when I'm making love.
Exactly. So these things are really possible and available, but everybody, men and women, we really need to learn. And I think there's also a shame in needing to learn, right? Like, when I was a teenager, everyone pretended they'd done everything and knew everything. And somehow we need to be able to say, you know what, it could be better. So what do you think of the other steps? Like, maybe somebody realizes, I'm not really enjoying it, I'm not fully authentic. What would the next step be for them to take?
First of all, I would say, really make the commitment that this is a priority. Because I think a lot, and especially women might have this, but maybe even men that are in a relationship with a woman are kind of giving up on it, as it's like, oh, it's not that important, I can live without it. It's like, the spark kind of died out. But actually make love making a priority, because it brings so much happiness to your life. It brings so much connection to yourself as a woman. Like, I never did this because I wanted better sex. I stepped into this journey because I wanted to be more connected with myself. Like, I wanted to feel better in my body. I wanted to be more confident as a woman. I wanted to wake up and radiate. And I feel that is what tantric lovemaking gave me. And then all the pleasure and the orgasms, that was just a bonus, you know, that came. But I never did it because I wanted better sex. I wanted a better quality of life. And I feel that's what it has given me. So prioritizing it and making time, like, I feel so many women are like, oh, I don't have time for it. Or even men, like, in the beginning, I give different practices when it comes to masturbation. And it's like, you need to make time for that. Like, make time to discover your body, make time to explore, like, make time to discover different sensations that feel good, instead of maybe always doing just this. It's not really going to increase your pleasure, or always just doing this. Yeah, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to have the same experience, you're going to have the same feeling. So, you know, start by exploring new ways and discovering that actually the pleasure can be in the whole body, rather than just focused on the genitals. Because I think that's a big part of the sexual education that we have received, is that sex just takes place in the genitals. And when we come to tantric lovemaking, sex is with the whole body, and not just with the physical body, with the energy body, with the emotional body, with the mental body, and ultimately with our spirit. Like, it moves into like the levels of spirituality as well.
Yeah. We have a comment here. It's nice to have some normalization around your experiences. When feeling into my body, there's so much darkness, yuckiness, and shame. Yeah, so shame and then the darkness and that yucky feeling that can be there. This is so common and so maybe unspoken. I mean, really doesn't help that our Hollywood glamorized Instagrammable world, it always makes out everyone's having more pleasure, more fun, more. But actually, the reality I know and you know from working with hundreds, thousands of women, is that actually the normal is there tends to be more pain, more shame, more darkness, and we can do something about it. So do you want to talk a bit about shame? Because shame and shyness, that's one of the big symptoms, should we say, that women can experience.
Yeah, I think those are very much induced of, like, it's not our fault. First of all, I think I want to make that really clear, that it's not our fault that we have shame or that we feel shy, because I want to say almost everyone grew up in a society where sex wasn't something that was presented in a very healthy way. Like, I remember my sexual education was just, here is a condom, make sure you don't get STDs, you don't go pregnant, and don't go too fast. It wasn't explained from like a beautiful tantric master of, this is, you know, how you can use it as an art to connect with God, as a way to connect so deeply with yourself. This is how you make love in a way that you appreciate and love and respect your partner, and you have deeper pleasure together. It was just like, okay, this is, you know, the man gets an erection and the woman gets kind of wet, and this is how it goes. So there wasn't information available. So no wonder we feel shy, because we never received a proper education. Like, sexual confidence comes from knowing, from having an education, from knowing what we're doing in the bedroom. A lot of the women in my training, you know, when they sign up, I always give a questionnaire, and I'm like, you know, what's your intention? What do you want to get out of the training? And a lot of them say, I just honestly don't really know what to do in the bedroom. And I think women watch way less porn, so there can be some insecurity there, but then the men watch porn and they think that that's all there is. Yeah. So, you know, when it comes to shyness or having insecurities, I believe that first of all comes from a portrayal of sexuality that isn't healthy, especially for women, but also in the long run isn't pleasurable for men, because men want to have a fully awakened woman in the bedroom. But if we follow, you know, the way that sexuality is demonstrated to us in the West, then we're missing the point. So how to get I kind of forgot what you were saying, because I got into my story of like
shame. So yeah, you were just touching on like how like especially porn tends, I mean there's many different types of course, but like there's a lot of disempowering the feminine, shall we say, even towards the edge of a lot of violence. Like the statistics show, there's a lot of violence against the feminine, and that can like push a drive. Of course, it makes it very addictive to watch. That's why it sells. But ultimately, it doesn't create pleasure. It doesn't create connection. It doesn't actually create intimacy, and it doesn't create rewarding lovemaking. And so, you know, it's purely there as a commodity to make money, and not as a genuine sexual education or anything that's really going to help men and women have pleasure and love and intimacy and the things they truly desire. And so, therefore, women are you know, it's propagated to keep the feminine kind of disempowered. And so, you know, there's this, you're sharing how there's this imbalance that men think they know what they're doing from porn, but it's not very pleasurable. Women think they don't know what they're doing because they haven't got the education. And we get stuck in this situation where women are feeling shy, feeling ashamed, feeling stuck in their sexuality. And you hit on this point that I really love, and I'm going to highlight it again, which is that actually it's super rewarding for men to be with an empowered woman sexually. And this is a very big topic. And someone's also said, why is there such a culture of disempowering women? Big question, because we could talk about that for hours.
I think that's a whole other,
it's a whole big topic. And you know, there are many different answers to that. Some say jealousy about the feminine body being able to create life, create babies. Some jealousy set about some hundreds of years ago about the power of the female body, and therefore to make the men feel more powerful, they would disempower the women, such as making them lie down to have babies instead of squatting and screaming and going into their wild orgasmic childbirth. So that could be one reason, but there's definitely the concept that disempowering a woman is going to give men power, but it's not true power. And so therefore now many men are afraid of an empowered woman, which is also something we should talk about. And yet, I just want to say, to get to an end point and then go back again, and I'm sure you'll agree, Arja, every man I've been with since I became an empowered sexual woman, some of them have been afraid initially, but they love it. I mean, they love to be with a woman who loves pleasure, loves her body, loves being orgasmic, knows what she's doing, loves to sleep on top, can ravish her man, you know, can surrender deeply to orgasm. I experience that men really love it. They might be afraid of the concept, but they actually love the reality. What do you think, Arja?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel that men are a little intimidated at first. Like, I actually recently had an experience because I started dating someone new who isn't in this field at all. And the first time I could feel like because he knew about my work, which, you know, the guy is just like, okay, she's teaching about tantric sexuality, I don't know anything. So the first time he was definitely a little intimidated, but then the second time, I'm gonna reveal some secrets here. I gave him a 3-hour blowjob in which he had 5 non-ejaculatory orgasms for the very first time in his life, because he never practiced any of this. And I adored his cock so much, both hard and soft, because obviously he didn't stay hard for 3 hours. I kept giving him this blowjob, then it was hard and soft, and I gave him like so that he was just, I've never felt so relaxed and so confident with a woman ever before. That's what he told me. He was like, you just gave me so much confidence, because the way that you show up in bed, how confident you are in your body and in giving pleasure. And he's like, I feel I don't even have to do much, because I just tickle you and you're already having orgasms. So he's like, and he tells me like, my deepest desire or my deepest pleasure is seeing the woman in pleasure. So yeah, in the beginning, you know, men are a little intimidated, but then if you as a woman can give the confidence to a man, which is really important, what I teach inside of my training, because, you know, there is a way that an empowered woman, I think, can really emasculate the man, and there is a way that an empowered woman can step into her feminine and really support the man to be a better version of herself, which is an art in itself. And when that happens, men absolutely love it, because they get the most amazing lovemaking they ever had. And, you know, I have to say that often with men, especially when they're new, it's like, I can keep going and they are like, woman, I am done. I am tired. I need a break. Like, I can keep going.
So we've got a few men watching here now. Men, do you feel brave enough to say whether you like sexually empowered women or whether you're intimidated by them? Do you want to put some comments in, guys? It would be lovely to hear from you.
I would love to hear from the man as well. I'd love it. Some of the men are like, no.
As you're here, and this is an important topic. Would you like to see more sexually empowered women? Would you like that in your own woman? Would you like to be with an empowered woman, or does that idea feel intimidating? Anyone brave enough to reply here?
You can put it in the chat.
Yeah, we've got a little hand. Great. That was. Yeah, and I think somehow, like I remember reading somewhere in my sexual journey, I remember reading a female sexuality is stronger than a man's. And I remember being like, what? I was
Yeah.
always taught that a man is sexually stronger and therefore men can rape and oppress and they've got these men are these big sexual monsters and they want something from you as a woman and you've got to fear every man. And then I remember reading a woman's sexuality is more powerful and think about how the way she brings a baby in the world and her orgasms when they come can be bigger and stronger and go on for longer. And that moment of reading that line was life changing for me of like, wow, I don't need to be afraid. I just need to find what's inside of me and learn how to be it, express it and share it. That one sentence was a life changing moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you're sharing that because I feel there is this idea that sex is mainly for the man, right? Like also if we look on the internet, what's put on porn, what's in the magazines, the way that the beauty image that the women receive, and it's often this idea I think a lot of women have, and I used to have this, that sex is more for the man. Like I remember in my early 20s when I had my boyfriend and we had kind of an argument and I was like, okay, so no sex for you tonight. And I'm like, no sex for you? Right now I'm like, if I would say that, it's like I'm robbing myself of like, this is the most
Yeah.
amazing thing that I love to do. It's like, why would I, but there is this thing, like my friends tell me, it's like, yeah, so I'm not going to give you a blowjob for a week. And I would be just like, not giving a blowjob for a week. It's like that's the most amazing thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
there is this idea that sex is for the man,
Yeah.
and I think women only think that or behave that. And again, exercise for those of you that are at home is trying to see if that belief for you is true. Like, are there ways where you feel like, oh, I'm punishing my man by not giving sex or blowjobs? But it's like, then that actually indicates that in some way sex is more for him than for you. And I believe when a woman I don't believe, I know when a woman becomes sexually empowered, it becomes such an important part of life, and not just sex in the bedroom. I'd love to indicate that for me it's about sexuality that really becomes an integrative part of your personality, which is way more like, I was celibate for 3 months because I broke up with my partner, and still I was a sexual woman. I was connected with my sexual energy. I was, still felt radiant and alive because that energy awakened something inside of me. So it's so much more than just having a more pleasurable sexual experience. It's feeling more radiant as a woman and really living, this sounds, I don't know, cliche, but living a happier life. I really feel that it improves the quality of my life so much because I feel there's a power inside of me, a self-worth inside of me that makes me less dependent on like approval of others. Of course, that still shows up in certain ways, but so much less since I found that power within myself.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I remember meeting an old school friend who didn't go anywhere near my path, and she was saying, oh, once you have babies, you don't have to have sex anymore. It's great. And I'm like, what? And she, yeah, all my girlfriends are the same. We're done with it now. We've had our babies. And it's like, wow, just something you put up with until you had a child, like I try to say to them, there's so much more. I would really love you to explore it for pleasure. Really love you to explore this for yourself and to find your own body and your own pleasure because you clearly haven't found it yet. you know. And I've had women come on my trainings in their 50s and even as late as their 70s to come and find their sexuality and discover it, and sometimes weep with like, oh my God, I can't believe I waited so long. And yet it's
Yes.
never too late as well, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. In my last training, also the sexual initiators training, the woman was in her 70s and she discovered her sexuality, and she was just, one part of it was really sad. She's like, I'm 70, I only get access to these tools now. So one part of her was grieving all these years that she missed, and another part was in tears of joy because she was like, oh my God, I can still experience this. So women, don't wait, or men also, like, don't wait until you can, like, totally possible. But I wish I started when I was 16. I wish there's never too late to start, but you can't start soon enough.
Have to keep teaching the younger generations. I'm trying to talk to my nieces, I bought them a book for Tantra for teens. I'm like, please, if you learn one thing, don't wait to discover pleasure, like real pleasure in your body.
Yeah, I've redone like a virginity ritual where I like redid my virginity, but the tantric way. And that was so beautiful. And now, like, I also have a little niece. I mean, she's very young. She's only 2 years old. But it's like, I for sure am going to teach her, like, hopefully the first time that she will make love, it's going to be like the ritual that I did, a few years ago, that it doesn't have to be something that we need to reverse, but that it can be as beautiful from the start. She already calls her vagina yoni. She goes like, bum clean, legs clean, yoni clean. So she's already
That's amazing. That's the way.
Yeah.
That's the way. It's time for that re-education. So what about, sadly there's a lot of darkness that isn't healed, and so we have very high levels of abuse, and so many women who come to my trainings, that they were really introduced to the shadow early on, against their will. And so what do you have to share about the process of healing from abuse or rape or other forms of really painful shadow?
Yeah, I think this one is so important, yet really difficult, because I feel there is, there's so much negativity that has been created around sexuality on so many levels, like the physical level, the energetic level, the emotional levels, the mental levels. And then to be able to connect that with spirituality, that's can be such a big gap in the beginning. Yet I feel for women that can recover from such experiences, it's like turning the mud into the lotus, right? It's like I've experienced this, but actually I'm coming with so much self-compassion, and I'm gonna move through the stage of healing, that if the woman then can step into her empowerment, I think this is such a big growth that she can make. One of my students, she had been raped and abused by her father, did my trainings, I supported her through the whole healing journey, and actually now is teaching sexuality herself. Wow. So she like turned from something that was so negative and so awful, and really not wanting to do anything with sexuality, to actually making that her power, which doesn't mean that has to be the way, but there is so much that we can turn into the power when we have those negative experiences. And I think the first step with that is really coming with compassion to yourself, knowing that it's not your fault in any way, and knowing that there is a way to heal that. But that definitely requires I would say for that, I really love one-on-one work to really move into the deep healing, and really have support by someone, because the support of a sisterhood or have another woman that can guide you through that, I believe is super, super important.
Yeah. And I think, I was speaking with someone last week about the way that the like mainstream medical world is helping or trying to help with trauma, and the way the Tantra world is, and just how powerful it is to do embodied practices, to go, not to just deal with trauma through the head and retelling the story and maybe getting re-traumatized, but to be able to start feeling into the body, and maybe even it feels unsafe at first to go into the body, but to then just stay present with the feelings that are arising physically and the physical sensations, and using the breath, and just starting step by step to make it safe to journey back into the body, right? Because there's no way to find that authentic pleasure and sexuality without going through the body.
No, and women just disassociate when it comes to lovemaking when they have experiences like that.
Yeah. Could you, maybe for those that don't know that word, can you describe how someone would know they're dissociating in sex?
When you're not being present anymore. It's like things are happening, but it's almost like you're just out, you're zoomed out, you're in another, like if you ever had these moments during the day that maybe someone was talking to you and then they're like, hey, are you listening? And you didn't hear a word what was saying, nor do you know anything that happened, and suddenly someone is like, hey, are you listening? And you realize you completely weren't there. I would describe that as like a feeling of disassociating. So you are there in the lovemaking, like things are happening, but it's just a part of you is just not registering what is happening
Yeah.
completely in your mind, or even just in a different space that is not, you're not feeling, you're not connecting. It's like you numb yourself completely. I would
Mhm.
say that is that
Yeah.
that can, I mean, there's different levels of disassociation, but for you to know if there's just moments where you feel like I just blacked out in a way, not that you're like blacked out in terms of you get unconscious, but it's just like,
You're like, where was I? Like when you've been driving
where
for a while,
was I?
you're like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
already, where was I? Exactly. And I
exactly.
so that's so
Yeah.
common for so many women in sexuality, just like, oh, this thing is going on. Oh yeah. And to recognize, to know that that is dissociation, and to know that that's the opposite of embodiment, and that you've kind of gone out of the body, and therefore it's good to learn the practices to go back into the body, and that only pleasure and only healing can happen in the body. I think all these things are super important to know and understand, as part of the healing, right? And
And I
you,
think meditation for that is great for those of you that like are like, okay, if you notice I'm having this, like meditation and mindfulness is such a great way to like stay with the body and be present with what is happening. And I love turning lovemaking into a meditation, ultimately as well. So it's like already touching upon more the depth of where lovemaking can go. But the more that you're able to like stay present in your body and really connect with what you are feeling, the more that you can, that you stay here and that you're opening up to deeper experiences. Yeah.
a question's just come up. Could you tell us a bit more about the tantric ritual for virginity, and also some opinions on conscious celibacy?
The ritual of virginity, I'm not going to share too much of it because it was a very personal ritual, and I don't know, like I don't want to share too much of it, of like how it went. But what I do love to share is that for me it was really a moment to consciously relive my first sexual experience. So I really was like, okay, how would I have loved my virginity to be taken? And I recreated that in the form of a tantric ritual. I also did 5 months of celibacy before that, so it was really like, okay, I did a super intense traditional tantric practice in India, so 5 months celibate. Super super strong practices that is nothing close to the tantra that I'm teaching or that any of us is teaching. It's super traditional. And then I was like, okay, I'm going back into my sexuality. I've been celibate, I've done all these practices, let me recreate that experience of how I would have loved to lose my virginity. And I had a beautiful tantric man that did that with me. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow, lucky him. That's very special.
Yeah, and I made vows as well. I really made vows, as in I'm becoming like from now on, like this is really what I devote myself to. So it was really really beautiful, like vows as in this is how I'm showing up sexually for myself for now and always. So it was consciously stepping into a new sexual version of myself. So
Yeah.
that was the ritual that I did. And I think conscious celibacy is amazing. I really recommend periods of celibacy. I just had a period of 3 months of celibacy myself. I do celibacy, I think, almost on a yearly basis. Well, I had a partner for a year and a half, and then there wasn't celibacy. I mean, just a few days, but not longer periods of time. I think celibacy is an amazing way to really learn how is your connection with sexual energy. Because if that's driving your nuts, you know, if like you're obsessed, or if you can really easily sublimate it, or if you very easily lose the connection with the sexual energy, I think it says so much about the relationship that you have with your sexuality and your sexual energy. Yet I think it can be really tricky to do conscious celibacy without the right guidance. Without the right guidance, without
Next,
the right guidance doing so.
that will be the next course.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe you'll give us new course ideas.
There used to be a course, sadly it doesn't exist anymore, but there used to be a course that was called the Woman Free Diet or something, and it was guiding men through
Wow.
celibacy, including not even like interacting with female friends, with, you know, and it was helping men to find their kind of addictive patterns to the feminine and source feminine from within and from nature. And
Yeah.
I've been celibate almost 4 years now. Is that healthy? Is a question.
I think whether it's healthy or not is not, I wouldn't be able to, I'm curious what you would say, but I wouldn't be able to answer that because I have no clue the way that you're doing your celibacy, if you're channeling your energy in different ways, if you feel that you're suppressing it. Are you also not doing self-pleasuring, or you are self-pleasuring? Do you feel that you're completely drying up, or are you really using the beautiful sexual energy, which is ultimately just the creative energy, right? It's like sexual energy, creative energy, but humans put the label sex on it. And now it's suddenly this energy that, you know, that means so much more. But like celibacy doesn't mean, okay, I'm suppressing my desires, I'm not putting my mind on sex, I'm hiding it away. It's like beautifully in creative ways using that energy to channel it into different ways and really feel more enlivened from it. So whether it's healthy or not, I think it all depends on the approach that you use for celibacy. But I definitely think it's good for people to have periods of celibacy. And I also really think it's really, really healthy for people to have periods of a very striving sexuality to blossom.
Absolutely. I did 9 months, which is a really long time. Nine months of conscious celibacy. I still had a lot of intimacy. I had intimacy with men, and not a lot, but like chosen intimacy. But I really chose not to have penetrative sex for 9 months because I was really wanting to reset and move to another stage of my life. And I found it tremendous. I mean, I did rituals every night. I did a lot of self-love. I did a lot of self-pleasure. And then when I met my current partner, it was like a virginity ritual of like losing my virginity, and it was very beautiful. And it was a new type of relationship and a new level of love. So I did it very consciously. I did it because I'd had 10 years of what I call my bikini phase, more open, explorative sexuality, and I wanted to make a change. So I find celibacy can be very nice as a kind of, like you did, like you end a relationship, you do 3 months, or you're shifting a pattern, and then so it's really a nice way of you doing a reset to take your energy back from partners, to be with your energy more yourself, and then choose where you're going next with it, and then step into the next phase. I think it's tremendously helpful for that.
Can almost be like a rite of passage, right? It's like a rite of passage, as in like I'm marking the end of something and I start something new.
And
Yeah.
at the same time, I think it's also important what you said of like it's also important to have healthy sexual periods, because you can get too comfortable on your own. It's too, in some ways, easy. You're not facing a relationship, you're not facing intimacy, and so you also are not facing yourself in many ways. And you know, I think sometimes also we have to see when it's time to jump in, to get out there again, to take risk, to I don't mean like sexual health risks, but I mean, you know, the risk of being seen and the risk of being intimate and opening up, because there's so much growth available there, and I think it's super important that the two are in balance, right?
Yeah, and I also want to say that a lot of people, I don't know what are the reasons, you know, there's different reasons for conscious celibacy, but a lot of people choose it as a form of spiritual practice. It's like, okay, I'm going celibate because of my spiritual practice. Whereas it's for me in the bedroom, and that is my deepest spiritual practice. Like the sexual energy is so powerful for me that it really leads me into states of prayer of meditation, of states of consciousness where other people go when they take drugs. It's like it's I feel like in complete prayer when I make love. So it's like, if I look at my spiritual practice, when I make love, I usually go deeper than my morning meditation in every way, in the way that I feel in alignment, in the way that I feel connected with spirituality, in the way that I pray, so it's almost, you know, if that would be a reason, it's like that just boosts so much, you know, if we use that energy to actually connect it back to the source and with ourselves. There's experiences available to us that others only take, you know, have when they take drugs. And I'm not a person that experiments a lot with drugs. I've done, you know, little tries left and right with some medicines, but it's just like where I go in lovemaking, people tell me, yeah, that's what I have when I take MDMA, or that's what I have when I go on acid, or that's what I have when and I'm like, that's directly available from your body from inside, because it's just the intensity of energy that brings you into a different, you know,
there's no calm down as a bonus.
There's no calm down, there's no hangovers. No.
So let's talk a little bit about your program. You mentioned a few times that you're running this program for women. That's the sexual initiatrix, right? So
sexual initiatrix, yeah.
Name. So tell us a little bit about that for those that want to dive deeper with you or send their your way.
Yeah, it's also starting super soon, so you would be joining right in time, because we're actually starting on Wednesday. But this, in my training, what I really teach women is to create that deep connection, first of all, with themselves and with their own body. So it's really an initiation into your own sexuality. I remember that when I learned everything about tantric sexuality, I was just like this completely shifted the way that I make love, but not only the way that I make love, the way that I connect with myself as a woman, the way that I show up on life, the way that I feel about myself. So in my training, I really guide women through a journey of become that confident and become that embodied and feel so connected with our sexuality, so that we can drop these insecurities and these feelings of shame and the ways that we're holding ourselves back, or maybe playing small, or finding ourselves pleasing or doing things for him. And really, you know, it's inside of us. It's inside of each and every woman, but I almost feel it's been covered by layers of shame and keeps us small in many, many ways. So yeah, I teach women to become a sexual initiatrix. So what that really means is being a woman that's fully confident in her sexuality, but in a way that she's also deeply connected with herself. So it's really coming from an approach of tantric sexuality, where spirituality is thought, but in a very grounded and down-to-earth way, where women get the chance to drop the shame, to drop the guilt, to get sexual confidence, to understand both on a very physical level, like how does female sexuality actually works, as well as on an energetic level, the mental level, the emotions that are tied to our self-worth, to our sexuality, as well as diving into tantric rituals, and, you know, starting to experience that sex can be so much more than genitals rubbing together, or, you know, on the physical levels, which is what most of us have been educated about, that sex is physical. But when we look at tantric lovemaking, sex can go so much deeper. It can become so much more intimate, so much more pleasurable, so much more connecting. And that is just like the extra result that you get, right? The first part is like feeling blossoming, flowering in your femininity, and it's almost like a power gets unleashed from inside that ripples out everywhere. So what I say is to women when I finish my training, it's like you walk into a room and it's this afterglow of sex that you have just after lovemaking. That afterglow is not just after lovemaking, it is just there. You know, that's just part of who you are. It's not depending on if you just had sex anymore. It's like, I think women really access a certain power when they unleash their sexuality, because like you mentioned in the start, we're not being, how do you call this? I forget the English word, suppressed. and disempowered anymore. It's like you step in your own power, because the one thing that women have been shamed about the most is our sexuality. So if we overcome that, we step into a power in our work, in the business, in relationships, in our friendships, in everywhere we go. It's like that one thing that women have been shamed for so much is our sexuality. And when you overcome that, you become so much more powerful. And that's the tools and the techniques and the education that I give women on how to actually awaken that in yourself in a way that you're not depending on a man. Because sometimes women are like, okay, now I started with Tantra, but there's no man available that can meet me. And it's like, I need a tantric man, or I need a conscious man. And I'm actually teaching women that you don't need a tantric man. You don't need a conscious man when you fully embody this. And that's the journey that I take you through. It doesn't matter who's in front of you, because someone touches you and they're like, that already feels amazing. The power comes from you. It's not putting it on the man anymore. So that's, you know, this archetype of the sexual initiators embodies that.
I have to say, I think it's the best thing I ever chose to do in my life, without a doubt. And I totally resonate. The energy of the waking the sexuality within, it spills out into every relationship, every connection, even the people in the supermarket or whatever, and into your work and into your life on every level. There's a kind of radiance that is there, that is every woman's birthright, and makes every partner of one of those women a very happy man, of course.
Yeah, one of what
I think it's really important to say that female sexual empowerment isn't power over men. It's not about like, oh, you've been powerful, now we're going to be the powerful ones. It's like, we're going to rise together. We're going to rise into more pleasure, more intimacy, more connection. You know, like we're going to go back to the Garden of Eden. We're going to go back to this beautiful relating of paradise, of heaven on earth, that we know is our birthright and the core of our beings. And I think that's so important to say that it's not a power game, and it's an inner power, not a power over, right?
Yeah, and that's again also the feminine concept of power, because in the masculine way, it's like, oh, the power over others, or the power maybe to control someone. Here it's actually the power to be fully yourself, and to stand in your own value, and to feel that from inside. And then, you know, meeting a partner becomes so much more beautiful and intimate and sacred. And, you know, yeah, it's like you were saying, it's the best thing I've ever done. Like from the moment that I started, where I was like a broke backpacker traveling around the world, it's like the moment that I found this, I was like, all my training is just going here. And that's what I've done since I started 8 years ago. It's like the only thing I care about is investing myself in this. Yeah. And it's the best thing that I've ever
done. So for those who have been with us today, this morning, this afternoon, whatever time zone, you are offering a discount for this training, right? We're going to post a link both here in the chat, and we'll also post it in the event. If you're watching the replay, then you can find it there. There's the link, which automatically gives you a discount of $50. It's in dollars, right? Yeah, from euros from your training. So and it's starting on Wednesday. So this is
it's starting. The registration is closing by the end of today. So it's starting super soon. Yeah. And men, also for the men that are watching, if you want to gift yourself all of what we spoke about, give this to your partner. Yeah. Because it's the best gift that you can ever give to your relationship, or gift it to you as a relationship. You know, I like one of the partners from the previous course, he was just like, I feel like a king since you have taken this training. He's like, it benefited our relationship so much. It benefited, you know, they started raising a child and the spark was kind of gone. And he was just like, you taking this training has in a way almost saved our relationship. So it's, you know, for the men that are watching this, take this as a gift for your relationship. I literally have men, you know, buying courses of me to gift it to that partner, because it's, you know, it in a way, like it's going to benefit you so much. So.
That's so wonderful. And in fact, somebody just posted comments almost paralleling that men also have insecurities, and it's evolutionary
100%.
to have their children, which can come out in less than healthy ways. So yeah, this is a journey we're all on, and we're all on it together. And yeah, it's so important to remember it's not a battle. The battle of the sexes is old paradigm. We're looking at rising each other up as kings and queens, and bringing out the best in each other, finding authentic pleasure, which is a win-win situation, right? And having a sex life and a love life that is healthy and enjoyable for everybody. And that's what we deserve, right? We all deserve that.
Like I feel we're all like, everyone is looking always to be happy, you know, to buy more products because that's going to make me feel better. But I feel when you connect with your sexuality, you have that from inside. You're not depending on it anymore from outside, because you, instead of, you know, going to, I don't know, go to like a fancy dinner, you go and make love, and that's going to make you feel so much better than like the new shopping bag that you buy, you know. That it's like you have access to infinite amount of happiness and feel good, like vitamins from inside.
Fancy clothes and makeup, you just need that ever glow that you're talking about. You just need that well fucked look and that pleasure filled woman, and then everything looks good on you. But don't tell the big corporations that we found something better than consumerism. Well, Arja, it's been such a joy as ever to talk with you and to share passion with you. Thank you so much, and thank you for the incredible work you're doing. You're so dedicated to this path, and I love everything you create. I love the words that you write. I'm super happy that you're here on Live Tantra on our platform. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. And well, you have a beautiful morning. I'm going into the evening here in Bali, and I just want to say thank you for those of you that were here live, and also for your input. I don't often teach with men, but it's so beautiful to have men here. We spoke a lot to women, but I know all the insecurities and the shame and the stuff was there for men. But I really appreciate you being here as well and wanting to learn about the women. I think that's you know, a quality in a man that is adorable. So yeah, thanks to both of the men and the women that were here.
Yeah, thank you. And if you think this is valuable to somebody else you know, then share the link of the replay with them, because as you know, we can't really advertise anything on Facebook or Instagram because we're talking about sexuality, so we're relying on word of mouth. So please share it with somebody who you know, and we'll be very grateful for spreading the word that way. So see you soon, and I hope you have a beautiful training. I would love to kind of hop in it as well. It sounds so good, but I'll be doing my own training. Thank you so much.
Thank you, love.
Quanto gosto de viver, dança sem fim, entre ondas